Why local rental data matters more than ever. Hello and welcome to Maxine Lester TV, where we keep you, the landlord, up to date with legislation, point out the pitfalls, and help protect you from getting it wrong. Today, I want to talk about something that's become important more than ever in the rental market. It's data. It's not about guesses or national averages or what someone's seen on social media. It's actual local data, because if you own a rental property in Cambridgeshire, what is happening across the UK as a whole may be really interesting, but it doesn't tell you what your property should be achieving. St Ives, in Huntingdon, Cambridge, Ely, Somersham, or the surrounding villages. And this is where we see a lot of landlords getting caught out. They look at the national headline, they think the market is going one way. But when you look at the local figures, the picture is really, really different. And that's why every month what we do is we review what's actually happening in the areas we work in. We look at our own managed portfolio. We do look at the local Rightmove data and Zoopla, just really from comparison, but we're more interested in what we do. And what we're looking at is postcode level rent figures. Behaviour, applicant behaviour, the reasons that your resident moves, and how quickly properties are letting, because that's really important. As far as we know, we're the only local agent sharing this level of rental market data regularly, and to be perfectly honest, we do it because I think landlords need facts to make good decisions. So, what did May show us? Well, we're now 1 month into the new world following the Renters' Rights Act. Came into effect on 1st of May, and so far we have not seen a dramatic change in behaviour. We've had some discussions about notice periods, and we did have 2 residents asking for a pet at 9:01 on the 1st of May, but overall there hasn't been a sudden market shift. However, and this is important, most of the Renters' Rights Act will be tested over time. It's going to be tested through real situations, disputes, tribunal decisions and case law, just as the Housing Act 1988 was. So whilst there's not been immediate dramatic change, that doesn't mean that we landlords can relax, because the market is changing, really because the rules have changed. So the way that landlords like us make decisions needs to change as well. The biggest thing we saw in May is that applicant demand remains steady, but there is more choice, and choice definitely changes behaviour. When your tenant or applicant has more properties to look at, they start comparing very carefully. They do look at presentation, obviously the price, location, can't do anything about that, but photographs, they really look at that. They look at whether the property feels cared for. So they may view one property. We are seeing more deals through because applicants are hedging their bets. That doesn't mean the market's weak when deals fall through. It means the market is more competitive and sorting out what people want to do. The properties that are still moving fastest are the ones that are well presented, close to amenities, that depends how you buy, but priced correctly from day one. So there's 2 things that you have basically power over. And this is where local data matters, because if your property is overpriced, by using guesswork, you may not notice the damage straight away. You may think, well, let's give it a punt, let's see if it works. But that punt approach could give you weeks of void period, and a void you will never get back. So really, a sensibly evidenced pricing strategy really works. So in May, average rent portfolio was $12,035, and that's a 6% increase year on year and a 3.3% increase on April. Now, that's very different that some of the national rental reports will show you. Some are higher, actually some are smaller, and that's exactly the point. The national average doesn't tell you what's happening in P27. It doesn't tell you what's happening in P29. but it does not tell you what a 3-bed family home in Huntingdon should achieve compared with a brand new 3-bed home in Huntingdon. And that's why we use local evidence. We look at the average rents by bedroom size and by postcode. Give you an example. For May, across the main areas we managed, the average 1-bed rent was £921. The average 2-bed was £12,074, 3-bed £1,298, and the average 4-bed was £1,720. That sort of information and detail is incredibly valuable for owners. It helps you understand whether your rent is behind the market, it helps you decide whether your rent review is appropriate, and it helps you to avoid overpricing at the point that you're starting to market. Under the Renters' Rights Act, it also has become even more important because rent increases now need to be evidence-led. So now you've got to use the Section 13 notice to increase rent. You need to be able to show the proposed rent is fair and supported by the local market. That's not something you should base it as with a quick look online. You need comparable local evidence. Why? Because if the property goes to tribunal, if your tenant decides to take it to tribunal, you need to make sure that you have the right figures, everything that you can prove why the rent that you put through is fair. And we don't just manage properties, we track the local market, we look at data, and we use this sort of information to help our landlords make better decisions. And that's going to be so increasingly important as the rental sector is becoming more regulated. Another key trend we saw in May is the return of properties that had previously been on the sales market, so the return to the rental market. We are seeing more owners come back to the rental market after they have struggled to sell. Now, some of these properties have been out of the rental market for 6 to 9 months, and obviously, that can be obviously a very expensive decision because look at the rent you've lost. Look at the council tax you've got to pay, the utility costs. With those ones that have come back on, we've seen anything between a loss of £7,000 to £10,000. Now, there's always going to be reasons why you want to sell. Sometimes it's retirement, sometimes it's family circumstances, sometimes it's a change of financial plans. But what we are seeing is that some properties are not selling as quickly as you are expecting it to. So they are coming back to the rental market. Not en masse, but basically they are coming back. And this is where a proper strategy conversation really matters, because before deciding whether you want to sell, let, refurbish, just leave it as it is, or restructure, you as landlords need to understand the numbers. Things like what rent could be achieved realistically. How long might it take to let? What work would need to do to improve return? Is that going to be worth doing? What compliance issues might need to be dealt with? And what is the risk if the property is taken out of the rental market now? Because obviously, under the new rules, if you've issued a notice but you don't sell, remember, you won't be able to rent that out for 12 months. So these decisions really shouldn't be made on hope or you expect it to sell. They need to be made on evidence. And that's why we support landlords with more than just finding a resident. We help with pricing, we help with compliance, we help with presentation, we help with the rent reviews, we help portfolio decisions, we help landlords understand whether their property is performing as it should. And today's market, that's where professional management really matters, because I've seen it over the years. I've been a landlord for really over 25 years. It's no longer a set up and forget industry. The days of simply putting a property online, choosing a resident and hoping everything works well are gone. Landlords are now dealing with more legislation, more enforcement, more resident rights, more evidence requirements and more financial pressure. But I'm a landlord. It doesn't mean it's no longer worthwhile. I'm doing it, far from it. The market is still strong for owners who do it properly. In May, across the areas we work in, and these are Rightmove figures, 167 properties were let. Now that's the same as May last year, and actually the highest level achieved since January. So even though there's more choice, we're still achieving good figures. So again, that proves it's not a collapsing market, but it is a more professional market. Tenants are moving, good properties are still letting, and rents are strong. But standards really matter. May have said it before, presentation matters, pricing matters, compliance matters, data matters. We also look at why residents move on. In May, the primary reason for residents to move on was relocating out of area, 32%. The second highest reason was purchasing a property, 24%. And that tells us something really important. People are still moving for normal life reasons, not because there's been a sudden change for the renters' rights and people will be leaving. Some people rent while they work out where their next move's going to be. We also are seeing more people that have sold a property because the market is a bit dead at the moment and are choosing to rent while they decide what comes next, but also they've got cash in hand. So that creates the opportunity for good quality rental homes. But it also means that those residents obviously have higher expectation. They want a property that's well maintained. They want space, they want good presentation, they want practical features. Interestingly, recent research showed that residents aren't always looking for the things that we assume they are. They're not necessarily focused on luxury extras. They want practical homes. They want counter space. They want storage. They want natural light, good ventilation, good water pressure, a space for a double bed. Forget the 4'6", parking and garden. These are the details that help the property stand out. And again, this is what needs to be in your property description, so when you are presenting. So if you want to have more information and more tips like this, why don't you subscribe to Maxine Lester? We look forward to talking with you.